All right, how's everybody doing today? Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. It is Monday, February 26, 2024. It's still African American History Month, Black History Month, and I'm here with this beautiful sister, Rue Simmons, who you've seen all over media over the past few years. How you doing today, Robin?
I'm blessed. I'm fantastic. I'm happy to be here. Reparations now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when people say reparations now, you know me. I interviewed Robin, I think it was 2021, 2022 on the African History Network show when she was still on the City Council of Evanston, Illinois. We'll get into that. And when people say reparations now, my response is reparations how? Because not you, but a lot of these people out here saying reparations now, I can't tell you how to get reparations. So what we're going to do today, everybody, Robin is the executive director of First Repair. Okay. She's the founder and executive director of First Repair, which is a not-for-profit organization that informs local reparations nationally. Now, previously, Robin Rue Simmons was the 5th Ward Alderwoman for the City of Evanston, Illinois, when she led, in collaboration with others, the passage of the nation's first government-funded Black reparations legislation, and we're going to have her give us an update on that as well. Okay, to date, $20 million has been committed to reparations by the City of Evanston, Illinois. She serves as the chairperson of the city's reparations committee, which oversees its initial restorative housing program. It began disbursements in January 2021. Several other governmental entities across the country are actively seeking to follow Evanston's example. So she has since left City Council in Evanston, Illinois, and I wanted to bring her on. We've been talking for the past few months on and off. We were on Roland Martin Unfiltered in 2023 together. I don't even think she knew I was going to be on the show. But I wanted her to come on to give us an update on what's taking place across the country for local reparations initiatives. But also, there is a new reparations anthem that has just been released. So give us an update on all this, Robin. And you can start with the reparations anthem if you want.
Awesome. Well, I'll start with that. I could not be more excited. I had a vision that in the same vein of self-destruction and fight the power and even We Are the World, that there would be a collaboration of hip-hop artists to bring forth a reparations anthem and inform, energize in the way that political rap has done for many, many years. I think about my own origin story, being radicalized and, very proud to be Black. It started with Fight the Power. It started with KRS-One and Public Enemy and their art informing my politics. And so we have a reparations anthem. It is called Reparations. It just released on Friday. It's on all streaming platforms. And the artists include Alaz Muhammad. Raz Cass, who we've all known for many, many years, The Holy Thief, Golden Child, and Supreme Kai. It is produced by Arm Real and Jahi Allah Most High Entertainment. And the song is it's everything. It sounds good. The message is tight. The education is factual. The drums, there's a live violin. There's a live trumpet being played by Alaz, the brother right here who you have on the screen. So please do visit firstrepair.org and you will find the song. You'll learn about all of the artists and the producers. The goals of this song is not for entertainment. Let's say, like KRS-One says, it's edutainment, perhaps, but I really look at it as activism. So please do enjoy it. Download it everywhere. There is a video also. So if you go to First Repair YouTube page, you'll see a full music video that actually just released today, and all the artists are featured in there as well.
First Repair YouTube video. So let's play a sample of the song. And
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Before you get into it, can you play a sample of the video? It might be more interesting.
Yeah, I can play a sample of the video.
Okay, and then that way they can see some visuals.
Okay, so the YouTube channel is, what's the YouTube channel?
It should be First Repair on YouTube.
Okay, First Repair on YouTube. So we'll pull that up.
Okay.
First Repair on YouTube. So people subscribe to this YouTube channel, First Repair. Okay, and we see reparations. We see it right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna bring this up. Let me see. Can you hear it playing? Can you hear it playing? I gotta open up line 3. Hold on. Okay,
no.
now.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yes. Okay. We can't see it though. So
no,
if we
gotta share the screen. Okay.
In spite of all the terror, all the harm, all the crimes against our humanity, we have over 400 years of Black resilience. Acknowledge, apologize, repair. This is a call to action.
I told Pharaoh, let my people go. And I feel like Joshua and Jericho. God on our side, so we all in know. Mathematics, Asiatic, actual problematic for savages. We demand an answer for these damages. First you gonna acknowledge, then apologize for real, more than teary eyes. Say it was a Holocaust, on up to the homicide. Ally or you anti, now you gotta pick a side. All colors, all generations, we came for reparation. No debating, need more legislation.
Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation.
No debating, need more legislation.
For independence, this is a declaration, we came for reparation.
No debating, need more legislation. Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation. No debating, need more legislation. For independence, this is a declaration, we came for reparations.
We the fruit of what our ancestors prayed for. First generation college graduates and homeowners. You look deeply at the roots and you see way more. History literally getting combed over. USD is an incomplete remedy. You ain't got enough denominations in your treasury to bring back to form all the souls that were taken. Spirits bring to life through these phrases. We came for reparations.
100% profit, slavery abolished, you Jim Crow, red line, blackballed knowledge. The war on drugs was a war on blacks. And if you speak truth to power, then you under attack financially. You reparated Israel, Native Americans. Past due, you reparated me. You reparated Japanese interns, but you designated we, the people who built this country, never really set us free.
No debating, need more legislation.
Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation.
No debating, need more legislation.
For independence, this is a declaration, we came for reparation.
No debating, need more legislation. Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation. No debating, need more legislation. For independence, this is a declaration, we came for
Over
reparations.
400 years of oppression is real, so how we heal? Placing law, policies, police try to demolish me, cause of my godly biology. So let's factor, first repair, power the economy, black unity, solidarity, not asking for handouts or charity, but how can we overcome disparities? We came for reparations.
No debating, need more legislation.
Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparations.
No debating, need more legislation.
For independence, this is a declaration, we came for reparation.
No debating, need more legislation. Worldwide got the people saying we demand reparation. No debating, need more legislation. For independence, this is a declaration, we came for
Golden, I
reparations.
see the vision like I was looking through her eyes. It's time we get paid, need my piece of the pie. We want reparations, no more segregations. Talking for the acres, now that's a celebration. On the back of the bus, I'm feeling just like Rosa. For my ancestors, look amongst us. For my children's children, I walk like Moses. We the people, God bless the chosen.
All right, so that is the
All
new
right, so I
video.
want everybody on this side of the room to say, agitate. Let me hear you. Agitate. This side, educate. Educate. That side, organize. Again, agitate, educate, organize.
All
How
right.
we going to make reparations?
So that was the song Reparations Hip Hop Anthem. And you can watch that at First Repair. You can stream the song wherever you stream your music. So explain to us what we just saw there, Robin.
Well, what we saw was a video, included all the artists, but you saw artists that are activists, that are passionate, Black folks demanding reparations and putting it to lyrics and a beat. You saw intergenerational, interfaith even. What I love about the project and the artists is that we came together. There is Islamic brothers, both in the nation, 5%ers, Christian, intergenerational from millennials up to Gen X, like myself, like me and Brother Michael. And it really showed how we can come together, even with differences. The same thing we demand is reparations. We are dealing with the same struggles. And so the video was shot, and the artists are from different locations. So you have artists that are from the West Coast, Los Angeles, Las Vegas. You have artists from New Jersey, Detroit, Evanston, Illinois. The Golden Child is the son of Evanston. That's who wraps up the song. And then we ended it with Queen's mother, sister, Nkechi Taifa. If those are following the reparations movement, Nkechi Taifa, attorney, Black power, Black lawyer. And she is always one that really gets us energized. And that's what you saw. It was kind of grainy or buffering on here, but it looks much better when you view it yourself on your YouTube channel. And thank you so much for making this space for the video to be premiered.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I saw some people at the different conferences that I know. Looked like Dr. Greg Carr was there. Was Dr. Greg Carr?
I don't think Dr. Greg Carr was in there, but a lot of...
With Dr. Julian Malveaux, Dr. Ron Daniels. I saw Cam Howard from Cobra. I saw attorney Ariva Martin. I've been on her radio show, KBLA 1580 AM out of Southern California, Tavis Smiley's radio station. You see her as a legal analyst on CNN. So I saw Ariva Martin. So I saw a number of people there that I know. Okay, so let's get into this. So we have the Reparations Anthem. Now, what is the purpose of the Reparations Anthem? What do you want it to accomplish?
So its purpose is to amplify the reparations movement. What we have found is a couple of things. One, and all of that B-roll you saw in there was different conferences that we've had over the last 2023. We are not seeing young leadership engaged in the way we would like to have the young voices engaged. And so our hope is that this genre, attracts new audiences. We're finding that even when we get young leadership to the table, that there is a disconnect. What exactly is legislations? Well, what exactly is reparations other than a check? How will we attain it? Michael, I love that you said not reparations now, but reparations how? That's really the question right now. We all want reparations. The case has been made through scholarship and journalism and activism and so on. But how are we going to do it? How are we going to achieve it? And so cities like Evanston, Illinois, Asheville, North Carolina, now Detroit, Michigan, on its way to reparations, is showing that there is a path forward to reparations, a comprehensive path forward. Reparations is far more than just a check. There are 5 components of reparations under international law standards, and many, many recommendations that Black folks are making in community. So my hope is that this song broadens the conversation around reparations, makes it more inclusive, makes it more interesting and relevant to younger Black folks, leaders, activists, and so on. And that it unites Black people around reparations, where we have difference of opinions. Who's eligible? What forms of reparations go first? How do you administer it? And these sorts of things. We're arguing about the wrong thing. We're arguing about HR 40 that hasn't even been established yet. We need to unite.
Sustain.
Right.
Sustain.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my hope. So this is not to entertain you, but it is to educate in the same way that KRS-One does. And that was my call to action to the artists. We need a song that inspires, it uplifts, it educates, it unites, and it has to bounce. So the drums are going to be very important so we can enjoy it and feel it. And I think they delivered.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So let's approach it like this, because I'm people know me. I'm a historian. I'm also a national political commentator. I have experience in writing public policy for the city of Detroit. I will actually be presenting to the Detroit Reparations Task Force on Saturday, March 2nd, 2024, 2 p.m., dealing with what are municipal reparations. So I like to define things and take things step by step. So first of all, because you were the one who spearheaded the first government funded reparations program at the city level, please define for us what reparations are. The reason why I say that is because, unfortunately, reparations have become synonymous with slavery. And slavery happened to varying degrees throughout the country, and you have a few states that didn't have slavery, basically. Okay. So please define for us what reparations is.
First of all, I want to say that reparations is not novel or new. That there's this thought that reparations appeared with the brilliant article Case for Reparations by Brother Ta-Nehisi Coates
In 2014, the Atlantic magazine.
Atlantic.
Yes.
Long history of Black folks pursuing reparations, and many places you can go and get that education, including firstrepair.org.
And the African History Network, but go ahead.
Absolutely. And the African History Network. Yep. Another thing is reparations is actually not exclusive to slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. Reparations are due also for all of its vestiges and its legacies that continued on. Even after slavery was abolished, we had, lynching, Jim Crow era, mass incarceration, the war on drugs, predatory lending, redlining, and even anti-Black policy that is baked into public policy today that looks like equity, and it's not. And so reparations is a way to make amends in a tangible way, and that is to be prescribed by the Black community, informed by the Black community on what that is, to repair a past harm. It is a legislative response. In this case, there are other responses that are legal responses and lawsuits, like the work that is being led by Rue Simmons with the Tulsa survivors. There are other, like Areva Martin, who also is leading reparation lawsuits, just not only in her own city, Palm Springs, but now taking on the descendants of St. Louis University reparations pursuit as well. So reparations can be cash, but it's also housing redress, different practices and resources that restore wealth. You can build wealth through home equity. You can build wealth through education. Health needs to be addressed. We have a life expectancy gap in this nation. In my city, it's 13 years between Black and white. Our sister city to the immediate south of us, Chicago, it's 30-year different life expectancy between Black and white in Chicago. And I'm sure Detroit has similar life expectancy disparities, as well as wealth gap, education gap, and so on. And so we need all forms of repair. And I'm with passing initial reparations and building on it, because it's also not a settlement. I know in Evanston, when we passed our first legislation, there was some criticism as if we thought we had solved for, our crisis. No, it is a first tangible step. $20 million is tangible. That's real. That's $20 million of wealth being restored in Black community, and we need to do more. And I'm proud to see so many cities, like one of my favorite cities, Detroit, Michigan, taking steps to do more.
Well, $20 million is more than anybody else has gotten for reparations. And let's put it out here. Evanston, Illinois, at the time, back in 2021, Evanston, Illinois was a city of approximately 60,000 people. The African-American population was 16% and declining. Okay. So one of the first plan. Hold on. So it's one of the first articles where I found out about you was from abcnews.com, and it was this article right here. How the first U.S. city to fund reparations for Black residents is making amends. Up to $25,000 per eligible resident for housing will be distributed this year. Now, this is from March 1st, 2021, from abcnews.com. And it talks about Robin Rue Simmons in here when she was on the city council in Evanston, Illinois, fifth ward alderman or alderwoman. And she talked about the discrepancies that she saw, the structural inequities that she saw in Evanston in comparison for African Americans in comparison to her white friends as well who lived in the area. Now, what happened is explain to people why, because you all got some flack for this from what I call reparations reactionaries who didn't do the research. But we talked about this when I first, even before I interviewed you, when I was setting up the interview back in 2021. Explain to people why you all chose to do housing vouchers and focus on housing discrimination in Evanston, Illinois, as opposed to slavery.
So one, we're a municipality. We're in a free state, and we are a municipality, fortunately a home rule municipality, but slavery and many other federal harms and crimes against Black folk are outside of our purview. So the very first thing that you need to do in developing reparations initiatives is develop a harm report, a history of what the anti-Black practice was in your specific locality. And in doing that, one of the next most important best practices of reparations is that the Black community is convened and is informing the process and prescribing what redress looks like. So we heard from our Black community on what forms of reparations do we want. Overwhelmingly, our Black community wanted some form of housing redress because of a zoning law that restricted us to a neighborhood that was further disinvested in and all the things that we know about in our Black cities. And so first of all, we had a harm report that named a law that was in effect from 1919 until 1969 when federal fair housing was passed. And we could calculate there had been damages due, financial damages and housing related damages. And then secondly, we had a Black community that supported housing by consensus. The majority of those that participated supported housing. And then thirdly, this is back to Michael's reparations how, and I want to get that on a t-shirt, Michael. So let's just get that on a t-shirt. Reparations
Okay.
How, right?
Yes.
How we had to have a legal framework for reparations. Reparations it's unprecedented. It is provocative. It draws out agitators and opposition that have a lot of resources and will sue you and try to derail your work. So we had to have a legal framework, and our corporation counsel, Nick Cummings, who you may want to have on your show one day, with his support of his colleagues, including the brilliant Professor Justin Hansford from Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center at Howard Law School, they came up with what they call a narrowly tailored legal framework for reparations, which would allow us to have a viable reparations plan, one that wasn't like reparations for slavery in a city that can't connect directly. Now, yes, indirectly, yes, we can connect the dots.
Let me say this because I brought this up when the first time I interviewed you. I read some of the 70-page report that you all put out. Now, was that the city council to put that out, or was that somebody you commissioned to do the research? Who
it was commissioned, and it was done by Shorefront Legacy Center, Dino Robinson.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Dino, and somewhere here in the office, I have that 70-page report. Okay. Now, this is the article from abcnews.com from March 2021. This is what happens when people don't do research and jump out here talking about slavery. Robin Rue Simmons and her colleagues have the support of local historian Dino Robinson in building the case for reparations. Robinson is the founder of the Shorefront Legacy Center in Evanston, Illinois, an archive dedicated solely to chronicling and celebrating the local Black history that had long gone ignored. In a 70-page plus report, Dino Robinson documented discrimination and racism in Evanston, Illinois that dated back to the late 1800s. Now, this is what's important for people to understand. And I brought this up during the first interview I did with Robin. The state of Illinois abolished slavery in 1818. The city of Evanston, Illinois was not founded until the 1840s. The city of Evanston, Illinois does not have a history of slavery. You have to understand history specifically to the municipality or the state that you're talking about, where the redress is going to come from. A city is not going to repair the damage of something that the city was not responsible for causing or inflicting, because the city doesn't have those type of resources. A city is not going to repair the damage that the federal government did. Okay. Evanston, Illinois is a city of 60,000 people back in 2021, 2020, 16% African-American population, and it was a declining African-American population then. When you research this, you'll find out that there were African-Americans who were still alive who were the victims of redlining and housing discrimination decades prior. And if I remember correctly, African-Americans were the victims of housing discrimination starting about the 1890s. Is that correct? That's even before we called redlining. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what I try to get people to understand when I talk about repairing the damage, one is not specific to slavery. You have to understand history. Okay. And you have to assess the damage that was done in the area that you're talking about and address it specifically. You have to study, you have to understand the laws and policies that were put in place that inflicted the harm, maldistributed wealth, pawn resources. So you understand the laws and policies that have to be put in place to repair the damage. Okay. So when we look at assessing the damage that was done that needs repairing, before you can make recommendations for reparations, you first have to properly assess the damage that was done. And then when we look at the California Reparations Task Force, when we look at their final report, what's so brilliant about what they did, this is a 1,000-page report that lays out 12 harms, the history of those 12 harms. It shows what happened at the federal level, what happened at the state level, and locally at different cities in the state of California. Then they lay out 115 policy recommendations to repair the damage. When you start getting into this report and seeing how pervasive and how deep the damage is, then you realize this is way beyond the check. It was laws and policies that inflicted the harm. It's going to be laws and policies that repair the damage of the harm. So this is when we talk about the root concept of reparations, is to repair the damage that was done. That's the root concept, to make you whole again, to restore you to a level before the damage was done. Now, as a historian who also studies law and who's a national political commentator, I take repairing the damage to another level when we talk about understanding slavery and the legacy of slavery. You first have to analyze who African people were and what African people had before we were put into an institution that stripped us of our history, culture, language, spiritual systems, folklores, mores, family ties, cosmology, nationality, etc. If you start the conversation with us already in that institution being dehumanized, you don't even understand who we are and the type of damage that was done that has to be repaired. That's understanding it on a higher level. Okay. So what I want you to talk about is the success that's happened in Evanston, and then what's happened in Evanston has spurred, if I remember correctly, it's about 100 different local reparations initiatives across the country. And if you want to take that region by region, we can do it like that as well.
Okay. So in Evanston, as we mentioned, we made our first legislation in 2019. You know, COVID happened pretty immediately after that. And we came up with our eligibility requirements. And our process, we had 620 applications on our first opening, and we have begun dispersing. So we prioritize our seniors, so those that suffered direct harm. All of those were about 70 years or older. At our reparations dinner, ancestor dinner or appreciation dinner, we had reparations recipient as old as 101 years old there to receive their benefits with their families. The amount of both joy and pain that is experienced in these ceremonies, where our mayor comes and offers another very intimate apology and acknowledgement and a commitment to repair. They're given a plaque, served a dinner. We have a formal libation that is a ceremonial libation that's done by Dr. Gilo Logan, and they receive their benefits. So the other thing that happened, Michael, since we last talked, is we did get enough legal support to have cash as an option. So there was some community members that really wanted to opt for cash. They may have circumstances where, because of their age and circumstances, they would not be purchasing a home and didn't have one to improve. So now you do have the option to choose cash as a benefit. We expanded our revenue streams. Initially, it was cannabis sales tax revenue only.
Right.
Now it is also real estate transfer taxes as well. So that's how we got the additional $10 million. In addition to that, our faith community has really stepped up and they are showing out. So very quickly, in about 6-month time period, our interfaith community, churches of all faiths, and this is allied churches, not the Black church, synagogues, mosques, temples, and so on, raised an additional $1 million to be a companion to the work that's happening at a municipal level. Our local community foundation has joined in. And so moving beyond Evanston, our work has inspired other cities to do their reparations work. This is hyper local. There's no exact motto. No one has the exact answer. Everybody is the expert in this scenario, and communities need to get their own history. As Michael mentioned, you have to have the history. The harm report informs everything else: eligibility, forms of reparations, amount of reparations, and so on. And so great work is happening in every region. Michael just lifted up the incredible work happening at the state of California. In addition to those proposals that have been supported by the Black Caucus there for the state level, great work is happening in San Francisco, Sacramento, Palm Springs. We mentioned that being led by attorney Ariva Martin, Los Angeles, California, and a growing list of cities in the West. We have Denver, Colorado stepping up. We have Kansas City, Missouri doing incredible work there under the leadership of Sister Janae. And they have actually a mayoral appointed task force as well, in addition to their community task force. Baba Mickey Dean, those longtime movement leaders will know Mickey Dean, attorney Mickey Dean out of Kansas City, Missouri. We have Detroit, Michigan, who, grassroots led organizing initially with Brother Keith Williams, the ballot initiative. Detroit still the only city to successfully advance reparations with the ballot initiative, which is brilliant with the 80% Black electorate. Makes a lot of sense. So glad to see that Detroit task force has been funded to begin doing some work, and I'm looking forward to seeing a harm report coming out of that commission. The East they are on it. We have Amherst, Massachusetts. The state of New York is the third state to pass reparations task force. Illinois was actually the second, but is still in the process of seating theirs. But the state of New York, you have Amherst, Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, Providence, Rhode Island, long list of activity, Cambridge, Massachusetts happening in the East. And not surprisingly, the southern states have a lot more partisan issues. So they are not as embracing reparations broadly as some of the other regions, but South Fulton County, Georgia, Atlanta South Fulton County is having their task force, has strong leadership, very well organized, very well prepared to lead to reparations for their county. We also have some great work happening in Decatur, Georgia, under the leadership of Beacon Hill, an organization led by attorney Muwali Davis, who you probably have heard his name before, strong leader in the area. Jamoke, who you may know from Cobra, is leading some initiatives that are happening in Miami-Dade County, Florida. Tulsa, Oklahoma has both the lawsuit being led by attorney Rue Simmons, as well as the legislative work towards reparations led by Councilwoman Vanessa Hall Harper and grassroots leaders like Christy Williams and others, Greg and Charles and Demaria. So there's so much happening. And all of this really leads to really what's happening at the national or federal level. And I'll give you that update.
Go ahead.
HR 40 was introduced by
HR 40. Okay.
HR 40 was introduced 1989. We all know that. Great Rep. John Conyers. It has been introduced every year since 1989. And this last Congress, there actually was enough support in the House for it to pass, but there was not enough political will to call a floor vote. So we moved on past that Congress, and without a floor vote, there's a Senate companion bill. There's no delusion that it will pass the Senate. And that's why reparations leaders are calling for an executive order right now for reparations. And but what I can say is
an executive order from who for reparations?
All right, I'm sorry. An executive order from President Biden for HR 40 to be established, the commission to be established, which in 2015 was amended to include not only study, but to develop reparations proposals under the leadership of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Okay, now let me ask you a question, because I'm a historian, national political commentator, and have experience in writing public policy. And when I was on a commission to write an executive order for the city of Detroit some years ago, the first thing that corporate counsel told us, Sharon McPhail, the first thing that she told us was that it's illegal to write policies that are exclusively for one race of people or ethnicity. So you already know that. And that's Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Section 601, non-discrimination, federally assisted programs. And I'm going to bring it up right here. People can go to archives.gov and read the 1964 Civil Rights Act if you haven't read it. And when I spoke at King Solomon Baptist Church for the Kwanzaa celebration, December 27th, 2023, I brought this up as well, okay? Because I'm going to break this down, and then I want you to respond to this, okay? So, number one, the reason why race-based policies, reason why you can't have policies for only one race of people, and the reason why if reparations, repairing the damage of historical structural inequities, et cetera, if it happens at the federal level, it'll probably be based upon lineage, like is what's decided out of California, because they have a similar law in California where race-based policies are illegal, and they want to make sure that whatever gets passed in the state legislature does not get struck down in the courts, because if anything that gets passed will be challenged in the courts. I guarantee you. If affirmative action when it comes to college admissions was struck down by the courts by 6-3 conservative Supreme Court, a lawsuit brought by conservative activist Ed Bloom, okay, if the executive order on forgiving student loans was struck down by the 6-3 conservative court, which is Donald Trump's Supreme Court, you think anything that passes regarding reparations won't be challenged, especially coming out of California? Absolutely. So they have to make sure, just like in Evanston, Illinois, they have to make sure they are on strong legal footing because they know challenges are coming. But go to archives.gov, search for the 1964 Civil Rights Act in its Title VI, Section 601, non-discrimination in federally assisted programs. No person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Okay. Now, I want you to explain why an executive order for HR 40 is needed from President Biden, because I disagree with that. But I want you to go ahead, and I'm going to explain why I disagree with that and why it's not needed. Go ahead.
Well, I'd love to hear your response, why you disagree, but it's needed because it won't pass Congress. Even with it passing the House, it won't pass the Senate. An executive order is the only path forward for HR 40. I would love to hear, and Michael, please help me, give me some direction. I've been really just very hyper laser focused on what's happening locally, because we are getting some traction. And I think that a local to national approach for reparations, in the same way of school desegregation, ban the box, marriage equality, we're seeing more progress in that direction. And I'm taking leadership from national reparations leaders, and executive order is what the call has been. But that's why we need it, because it won't pass Congress. Right now, with an election forthcoming, it's a very tricky situation. So Brother Cam Howard has a initiative called Earn the Black Vote campaign. I believe it's earntheblackvote.org. And it is to message to President Biden and the vice president on reparations is the expectation for Black voters to continue supporting the Democratic Party. Now, I want to be careful there too, because some think that this is a don't vote if we don't get HR 40 signed by executive order. I'm never going to suggest that anyone abstained from voting, not after the hard fight of our ancestors for us to have that right. But that's just a little bit of the update.
Okay, so let me deal with it like this here. If we look at this article from Associated Press, this article deals with, name of this article, Japanese Americans Won Redress, Fight for Black Reparations. Okay. This article deals with how you have some Japanese Americans who are siding with and helping African Americans fight for reparations and actually get something. This is from February 24th, 2023. I talked about this on the African History Network show, as well as on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, on the Black Star Network, which is Roland Martin's network. And people can watch me on Roland Martin Unfiltered each Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Download the Black Star Network. Okay. Here's why trying to get a executive order for HR 40 is not going to happen. And it's not, and I'm going to tell you why it's not needed. Okay. When we look at this here, Pew Research did a study in 2024, survey in 2023, and they found only 30% of U.S. adults surveyed supported reparations for slavery. Only 30%. Okay, basically 2/3 of Americans are against reparations. Now, number one, Americans are very ignorant of history. 1, 2, Americans don't understand the U.S. Constitution. And there's a story from CBS.com, January 2021. Actually, it's January 19th, 2021, the day before the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which talks about how Americans are very ignorant of the U.S. Constitution, don't understand law. And if they don't understand law, they don't understand history. 77% of whom were Black Americans who support reparations. Okay, that's not surprising. Support among Latinos and Asians was 39% and 33% respectively, and white Americans had the lowest rate of support at 18%. But white Americans, based upon the 2020 census, make up 57% of the U.S. population. African Americans are about 13.5% of the population. Asian Americans are right around 5% of the population. Latinos are about 19 to 20% of the U.S. population. Okay, you don't have support in the Senate because you need 60 votes in the U.S. Senate. You have no Republicans that support reparations. You have an executive, and you don't need an executive order to convene a commission to study reparations. What they should do, because what happens is if that happens, now let's look at something. Look at the backlash that took place when there was $5 billion of debt forgiveness for farmers of color in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. And white farmers filed lawsuits against that, saying they were being discriminated against, and now it's tied up in court. Senator Lindsey Graham was on Fox News. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina was on Fox News saying this is reparations for black farmers, but if you're a white farmer, you get nothing. Now, he forgot that white farmers in 2020 from the Trump administration got almost $26 billion in aid from the federal government because Trump killed the soybean market with China, okay? And African-American farmers got 1/10 of 1%. They got 26 million. White farmers got almost 26 billion. Lindsey Graham forgot about that, okay? So because of this anti-critical race theory climate, this anti-DEI climate, diversity, equity, inclusion climate, the assault on African-American history in various states, passing laws targeting that, the way I think to go about this to reduce opposition and actually get something accomplished, this 1,000-page report from the California Reparations Task Force, which is the most extensive analysis and study of African Americans since the 1968 Kerner Commission report, they've already done the research. They lay out 12 harms here. I'm going to show you those 12 harms. They lay out 12 harms, but more importantly, they lay out 115 policy recommendations to repair the damage. The first thing that we should do, because 2/3 of Americans are against what we want, and most of the people who got to vote for this at the federal level are white. It takes 218 votes in the House of Representatives. African Americans only make up about 12% of the House. No black Republicans support reparations. Okay. Byron Donalds out of Florida doesn't support it. Burgess Owens out of Utah doesn't support it. John James right here out of Detroit doesn't support, well, Metro Detroit. He doesn't support it. And then Senator Tim Scott in the Senate, he's already said he's against reparations. He spoke out against the debt forgiveness for farmers of color that was in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for. Okay, so you don't have the votes in the House or the Senate. But the first thing that they should do, I think, if you want to get something accomplished, because 2/3 of Americans are against what we call reparations, take the term reparations off of what you want. Secondly, take these 115 policy recommendations that California laid out and push those policy recommendations, take the term reparations off of it. If you got to do 115 separate bills, because there's not going to be one bill that takes care of all this. You said before it's going to have to be a generation of repairing of the damage. Okay, take those 115 policy recommendations, craft versions of it at the federal level, state level, local level. The most important thing you have to show, and let me show this study here. I did a 1.5-hour presentation when this study came out from Citigroup Bank. CBS.com has this article from, 2020. This study shows how racism has cost the U.S. government the U.S. economy, I should say, $16 trillion, not over 246 years, okay? Not since 1900, but from 2000 to 2020, over a 20-year period of time, okay? What this study shows is how racism hurts everybody. The most important thing that has to happen, especially at the federal level, because most of the people who got to vote for this in the House of Representatives are white. And in the Senate, you need 60 votes to get this bill passed. Any bill that doesn't qualify for the budget reconciliation process, which requires a simple majority of 51, or doesn't apply to judges, which requires a simple majority of 51, you need 60, which means you're going to need some Republicans to vote for it, and no Republicans in the Senate support reparation. Okay, so what this does, this shows how racism is hurting everyone, even though the brunt of the harm is on African Americans. America could have been $16 trillion richer if not for inequities in education, housing, wages, and business investment between Black and white Americans over the past 20 years. New research concludes. The study released by Citigroup is the latest in a body of research that attempts to quantify the economic impact of systemic racism. Because one of the things that has to happen is the focus has to be shifted from slavery which it lasted 246 years, shift the focus from slavery to present day structural inequities, because those present day structural inequities are the legacy of slavery, and deal with the laws and policies that were put in place that created these structural inequities, and you can trace that back to slavery. This is the latest in a body of research that attempts to quantify the economic impact of systemic racism. Citigroup arrived at a $16 trillion figure after estimating that Black workers have lost $113 billion in potential wages over the past 2 decades because they could not get a college degree. 2, the housing market lost $218 billion in sales because Black applicants could not get home loans. 3, about $13 trillion in business revenue never flowed into the U.S. economy because Black entrepreneurs could not access bank loans. Now, what this shows is that if you correct these harms, if you correct these policies, this helps everybody. Correcting these structural inequities is good for America. It goes on to say, what's more, the U.S. could have $5 trillion in gross domestic product over the next 5 years if those gaps and others were closed today, the study indicated. You're dealing with laws and policies. So the way this has to be marketed, I think, number one, understanding the last 500 years of history. 2, understanding white people. Okay. If this is marketed as just benefiting Black people, we're going to lose 11 times out of 10. If this is marketed as just benefiting Black people, you have to use the evidence to show how this helps everybody, because it does. Policies that are good for African Americans are good for America in general. And if you take the term reparations off of what we want, because that becomes a huge target. Look at what happened in San Francisco when they rolled out their 100 plus. When the San Francisco Reparations Task Force laid out their 100 plus policy recommendations, and somebody threw out $5 million for every Black person in San Francisco, what happened? All the other realistic stuff got pushed to the side, and people were focusing on fantasy. Now, nobody, and I dealt with this here on the African History Network show, nobody focused on the fact, well, San Francisco has a African-American population of about 50,000 people. African-Americans are 6% of the population in San Francisco. They're going to have guidelines for who qualifies, just like at the state level. If 20,000 out of 50,000 African-Americans qualify for $5 million, that's $100 billion. $100 billion is 7 times the annual budget of the city of San Francisco, which has an annual budget of $14 billion and is facing, at the time that proposal was made, a projected 2-year budget shortfall of $728 million. Ain't no way in the hell in this lifetime or the next, something even remotely close to that. But people just throw out bullshit. And then what happened was, if you go Google those articles, 90% of the media coverage was focusing on fantasy. And then I have the video. One of the members of the city council was being interviewed by one of the local news stations. I played this on the African History Network show. The white newscasters wanted to talk about the $5 million for every Black person. He said, the guy from city council said, we got over 100 policies. I'll be happy to talk about some of these other policies. They wanted to deal with fantasy. And what you do is you shoot yourself in both feet, wonder why you limping around. Some of us are not approaching this strategically to actually get something accomplished. 1, 2, be able to keep what you got once you get sued to take it away from you. Go ahead.
You're right. I mean, I don't have anything to add. You're absolutely right. And to that point, it was the cost of segregation report, but also a report called the case for reparations, the cost of segregation, which much like the Citigroup report, it was based in 2018. It used Chicago, Illinois as an example on what would happen if its racial segregation was addressed. And it was something like $4 billion to Chicago GDP. Millions more household income for Black families, more college degrees, less neighborhood violence, less poverty, and so on. So it really showed how reparations, reparative justice, addressing racial discrimination and anti-Blackness is a public benefit. Hate to default to that because just based on it being righteous and just and those things, we should be able to go there. But it is a public benefit to reparations. Repairing the Black community repairs an entire community. And that I do think, I agree with you completely, Michael, is something that we should lean into more when we are developing compelling, founded, viable options for reparations. We should lean into what the public benefit is as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to understand how to market this. You know, in business school, we study a concept called WIFM, what's in it for me. If you just go around talking about you owe us, you owe us, you owe us, I'm telling you, you're going to increase the opposition against you. Right. Okay. Especially when you're dealing with, especially when the majority of the people that got to vote in this stuff are white.
That's right.
And then they have to answer to their white constituents back home. People are not thinking this stuff through.
Right.
A lot of people are out here, you know, pushing their own agenda and, you know, elevating their social media platforms, things like this. And these are not viable things that are going to accomplish anything. Too many of our people are confusing activity with productivity and preying on the emotions of African Americans who don't understand law, don't really understand history. We have to look at this strategically. Most importantly is to make sure your policies are legally structured. So when you get sued, because you will get sued, you have the Freedom Fund, the Fearless Fund. You have the Fearless Fund, African American women, including actress Keisha Knight Pullum from the Cosby Show. They created a fund not exclusively for African American women, African American entrepreneurs. It's for women of color. The lawsuit from white conservative Ed Bloom, conservative activist, said it was for exclusively Black women. And they're suing, saying you're discriminated. And they said that you're violating the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which was passed by Congress, signed into law. That one is so that passed Congress. And I think it was for that one, I think it was because Johnson was the president after Lincoln was assassinated. I think they may have had a supermajority. I can't remember if Johnson signed it into law, but it passed Congress. And this was the foundation of the 14th Amendment of 1868. And that Civil Rights Act gave African Americans the right to enter into legal contracts, okay? Because this is the year after slavery ended. Negotiate wages, things of this nature. So a bill that was passed over 150 years ago to help African Americans, now you have white conservatives suing, trying to use that same bill to lock us out of economic progress. This is the climate that you're in. So this is why I'm saying, no, we got, you know, if you study the history of slavery, there's a reason why most slaves who ran away at nighttime and not in the daytime. We have to think this, we have to be more strategic with this. Go ahead, sister.
Yeah. So, you know, we are on the same side of this. We have been since our first interview, and we remain to think the same. There has to be strategy. We are emotional. We are enraged. The harm is so great. No one single policy will ever be enough. So it's false debate. Should it be this or that? It should be this and that. It should be state and local and federal. It should be institutions and so on. So one thing that has been disappointing is to see some folks rejecting any local reparations initiative because it's not enough. There's no argument there. I'm not arguing that it is. If you think that any one of our local reparations commissions believe that what we can do in our locality is enough, you are mistaken. I would say every local reparations initiative that I have been engaged with names a federal response to reparations as a demand to the federal government. And we are doing what is our part. We are not solving the issue of slavery in these local reparations initiative. We're not even solving the issue of redlining. So I've seen a lot of articles reporting that Evanston is the first slavery reparations. No, it's not. That's still Evanston is reparations for redlining. Nope, still waiting on the federal government to address that. But what we can do is address what's happened locally. In Detroit, is it Black Bottom and the things that happen with the freeway and overassessed property taxes and so on. Those are Detroit specific harms that Detroit needs to repair and is committed to doing that with their task force. And so, yes, I agree with everything that you said. And I do believe that the local movement is making progress. I've seen how it's changed hearts and minds in our own city. I've mentioned our interfaith community standing up. I mentioned our community foundation standing up. But all of these local initiatives is really to call to action other institutional accomplices as well. Even in Detroit, I haven't seen the harm report, so I can't really tell you, but I could tell you the story's the same. The municipal government harmed Black people, but so did some institutions, whether it's a healthcare system, a university, a school district, an industry, maybe it's the big three, I'm not sure. But there are other institutional accomplices in Detroit, in addition to the Detroit city government, that have a responsibility to repair. I would encourage the community to look at the academy at colleges and universities as partners in this work. When you need help with research and other types of reports, there are professors that can use capstone projects and these types of things. Michael can give the Detroit Commission recommendations on these types of things, but it's really all hands on deck. It's all hands on deck. But right now, I just want to really shout out and send power to all of the local activists in Detroit and all across this nation, my own city, Evanston, Illinois, that is doing this work, that is holding local elected leaders accountable and supporting them. When I was in office, I was fortunate to have the support of our local NCOBRA chapter. Chicago NCOBRA chapter was very supportive in helping with public education and also helping with grassroots organizing for reparations. And I do hope that you lean into your historically Black organizations for support on reparations, whether it's NCOBRA. I don't know if NCOBRA is active in Detroit right now. It could possibly be your local NAACP branch. It might be a coalition of clergy and lay leaders. I don't know the makeup in your cities, but make sure that you're leaning into even the Divine Nine has been a great help here in Evanston in providing service project support and volunteerism and other forms of leadership. The Divine Nine has been great as well.
Okay. So two things that I want to show here, because unfortunately, people come to these conversations and post here on social media platforms, and I could tell they don't read, don't do research, don't understand how the economy works, don't understand the U.S. economy is $6 trillion, things like this. Okay. Now, first thing people need to do when they talk about the Biden-Harris administration, and I talk about this on the African History Network show, as well as on Roland Martin Unfiltered, go to whitehouse.gov and search for this fact sheet. The Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country, because this is a 36-page document that takes you through policy by policy to show how these policies are helping the African-American community. Okay, whether you talk about the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, whether you talk about the fact that African-American household wealth has increased 60% under the Biden-Harris administration, whether you talk about the lowest unemployment rate since they've calculated the unemployment rate by race since 1972, that happened in 2023. Policy after policy after policy, whether you talk about the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill, whether you talk about $5.8 billion for HBCUs in 2021, which is the most that HBCUs have ever gotten since they have existed. And there's been $7 billion so far for HBCUs under the Biden-Harris administration. Policy after policy after policy. So when people post nonsense here, I can tell you don't read. This is a different type of show. Go back to the social media, Black social media disinformation agents that you're used to listening to, because this is a different type of show here. All right, now, so read this. I'm gonna post this link here. And if you do something as simple as Google, how have the policies of the Biden-Harris administration helped the African-American community, the first thing that comes up is this document. If you did something as simple, if you didn't know anything about whitehouse.gov, which is the official website of the White House, all this information is at whitehouse.gov. Okay. If you didn't know anything like that, if all you did was just Google on your smartphone, and all these phones have a Google app, how have the policies of the Biden-Harris administration helped the African American community? The first document that comes up is this one here. And this is the version from February 27, 2023, because it first came out October 2021, and they've updated it periodically since then. Okay. Secondly, now you have some people, and I've had people call into my radio show, especially when I was on 910 a.m. WFDF here in Detroit, and they would say, well, Japanese got this, Japanese got reparations, things like this. Okay, so let's deal with that, because when I break down to people what happened, it's totally different than what they think happened. Okay, so let's look at this. This is at justice.gov. What's justice.gov? Justice.gov is the official website of the Department of Justice. Friday, February 19th, 1999. 10-year program to compensate Japanese Americans interned during World War II closes its doors. Okay, so what happened was 1988, the bill passed Congress, and it was signed into law by President Ronald Reagan. They had hearings. They brought in people who were survivors of the Japanese internment camps. Okay, this was very specific. So when people talk about, oh, Japanese Americans got this and that, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, which Japanese Americans got this? That this did not apply to all Japanese Americans who were in the United States between 1988 and 1998. This only applied to approximately 82,250 Japanese Americans who were actual survivors of being interned in the U.S. internment camps during World War II, or they were people who had to flee. This didn't go to future generations and things like this. That is not what happened here. There was $1.6 billion that was allocated by Congress for the survivors. Okay, not all Japanese Americans in the U.S. at the time. And that was for that period from about 1942. They got $20,000 each, okay, in redress to 82,219 claimants, totaling more than $1.6 billion. And there was a 10-year window that you had to apply to get this. All right. Now, the problem is that all the last of the former slaves died in the 1950s. And the reason why this was specific for those who were actually the survivors, those who were directly harmed, is because, like I said, race-based policies are illegal at the federal level, which is Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Section 601, non-discrimination in federally assisted programs. So what happens is, Robin, and you know about this more than me, you got too many people out here running around, running their mouths that don't read anything, don't do no research. Just run out here, slavery, 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 cut the check, cut the check, cut the check. Talk about that for a minute, please.
Oh, geez. That part, I have learned to work around that. But early in this, it was incredibly frustrating because it's a real distraction when you are looking to gain support from allies and educate the public. And then you have the Black community who is sharing inaccurate information, getting information from a Facebook timeline or some other place. It sets us back. It sets back our progress. It sets back our momentum, because now we have to sort out what's actual and what is not. And I always make a point to write to the source. These are the reports. cityofevanston.org. Go straight to Detroit if you're curious about updates on what's happening with the task force, because this work is very political. It's probably the most political, certainly the most partisan issue that I could think of. And with that comes intentional misinformation. It comes intentional division. It becomes intentional distractions. And then, as Black folks, we are injured in so many ways and disgruntled and hopeless with the government. And a lot of that I understand too. I understand that the government needs to earn our vote and our trust and our respect and so on. But the way we do that is we be educated and informed. And so when we go to them and say, we want this policy, this is why we want it, this is the precedent, we know that it is possible. You did it for Japanese internment. Civil Liberties Act was passed in 1988, and HR 40 was modeled to the T after that successful passing in 1988, but yet we couldn't pass it for Black people to even begin a commission to study. And
go ahead, and I'll go ahead and
okay.
Go ahead.
But I'll just say that really, I just thank you, Michael, for lifting up, getting the facts, being informed by the facts that are involved in the work. And then the other thing is everyone's invited to do this work. You don't have to have there's no eligibility to join the movement for reparations. All of the committee and commissions around the United States, including in Detroit, due to Open Meetings Act, these are public meetings. So you can go to these meetings yourself, hear the commissioners, hear the deliberations, see what staff is doing, weigh in an informed way. And I'll tell you that constructive feedback is welcome. We've had political feedback that wasn't helpful and it was a distraction. And we had some really hard constructive feedback that wasn't necessarily flattering to the committee, but it helped us do things like prioritize funding our elders first because they were dying, quite frankly.
Right. That makes sense.
We funded them first. Other things that we did was we did enough research, got enough legal memos to find out if we could give cash as an option for reparations. These are some of the types of things that we've been able to do, just hearing from the community that came wholeheartedly with good intentions and no agenda other than the successful outcomes for reparations.
Okay. Now, the other thing, and I addressed this already, you have these idiots out here who say things like, the Asian community got a hate crimes bill. Okay. Now, what that means is you didn't read the bill, because if you actually read the bill, you realize that one, that bill, the name of the bill is the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, number one. Number two, and it's at congress.gov. Okay, the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, number one. And number two, that bill is based upon COVID-19 related hate crimes as opposed to race related hate crimes. Okay, so that, and number three, the bill deals with data collecting. It deals with funding data collecting, better data collecting for hate crimes, especially for the Asian American community, because they came after a number of them were shot and killed at spas. But when you read that bill, and I read the bill applies to anybody based upon race or ethnicity. The bill is not specific to Asian Americans. So when people say, oh, Asians got a hate crime bill, one, you didn't read the bill that you're talking about. Go to congress.gov and read these bills. And if you read this article here from the Washington Post, bill to combat hate crimes against Asian Americans passes Senate with bipartisan support. Okay. Now, what I find interesting is those same people that say Asians got a hate crime bill don't mention the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. And that's the first anti-lynching bill that has ever passed in Congress and have been signed into law in 122 years. Since 1900, when Representative George Henry White of North Carolina, who was the last African-American left in both chambers of the legislative branch of the government, he proposed the first anti-lynching bill. It took 122 years, okay, for that Emmett Till anti-lynching bill, which makes it a federal hate crime to lynch someone. Okay, what people call the Asian hate crime bill did not make it a federal hate crime to kill Asian Americans. That dealt with data collecting, and it dealt with funding language translators, because language barriers become a barrier for people whose first language is not English. So that becomes a barrier in reporting hate crimes. So people need to go read the bill. But if we look at this here, there's a part here, Department of Review and Expedite. Okay, with Representative Grace Ming as the lead House sponsor, the legislation would assign an official in the Justice Department to review and expedite all reports of hate crimes related to the coronavirus, because the name of the bill is the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, because you had Donald Trump out here calling COVID-19 Kung Flu. And what happened was there was an increase in hate crimes against the Asian American community. But when you actually read the bill, the language of the bill at congress.gov, because I've actually read the bill, because I go read a lot of these bills, so I know what the hell I'm talking about before I open my mouth. The bill applies to anybody, regardless of race or ethnicity, of hate crimes related to coronavirus, expand support for local and state enforcement agencies responding to these hate crimes, and issue guidance on mitigating the use of racially discriminatory language to describe the pandemic. Okay, so read this. There's a Kung Flu, the Donald Trump's comments about the Kung Flu and the China virus as possibly inspiration for attacks on Asian Americans, but the inference is easily understood. Okay, go read this. Now, the very same people, and this is how you know you're dealing with people who have absolutely no clue what the hell they're talking about, and they get their information from these black social media disinformation agents out here. The first hate crimes act or bill in the history of this country was signed into law in 1968 by President Lyndon Baines Johnson, and it was part of the Fair Housing Act in 1968, and it was the result of the modern day civil rights movement, and it was largely for African Americans. Okay, so what I don't understand is the very same people who talk about an Asian hate crime bill, and it's not called an Asian hate crime bill, and they haven't read the bill, somehow skip over the fact that the first hate crimes bill in the history of this country was largely for African Americans. Not only that, when you study the U.S. Department of Justice, do you know when the U.S. Department of Justice was created? Robin?
I do not know.
Okay. U.S. Department of Justice was created in 1870 during Reconstruction. The U.S. Department of Justice was largely created to enforce the new rights of African Americans, of the former slaves. People, go read this article from SmithsonianMag.com, the official website of the Smithsonian Institute. Created 150 years ago, the Justice Department's first mission was to protect Black rights, because we have African American elected officials at the state level and local levels who were being attacked and killed by the Ku Klux Klan and other domestic terrorist organizations, and you have white Republicans being killed as well. But it was disproportionately us being attacked and killed. This is why the Department of Justice was created in the first place. The Office of the Attorney General goes back to about 1789, but the U.S. Department of Justice was created during Reconstruction in 1870, largely for African Americans. So I don't know where people are getting this nonsense from, but wherever you get it from, you need to go back and give it back to them. Go ahead.
You know, I can't add. I mean, you were teaching, you're preaching, and I do hope that if nothing else, the takeaway is for folks to get their information directly from the source. This is all public source. You don't have to subscribe, pay a fee, anything. You can be informed directly. But as it relates to the work that's happening in Detroit and other cities, I do recommend that you observe those meetings yourself. You don't have to participate. You don't even have to have public comment. And please don't have public comment if you're not informed. But I do recommend that you come observe the meetings. And then once you are informed and you have feedback, share it with the committees, because this work really is to be informed by the people. It is to be legislated. Another thing to know is all of the recommendations that come out of these city task force and commissions still have to pass the dais. So it's still going to the city council. It's still going to the state assembly.
Yes.
So voting still matters. It doesn't matter how strong your commission is. If all of your favorite neighborhood people are on the commission, it means nothing, because it's still going to that city council, and a passing vote, a majority vote is going to be needed at a legislative level as well. So please don't be distracted by the work that's happening alone in the commission. Distract is not the right word. Pay close attention to it, but know that there's a next step, and it's going to include your council member your mayor, who supports this work, has been educated and informed on this work, and votes it into law, passes a budget, and so on. And so what we don't want to see is like what we're seeing in many other localities, where we're passing a resolution, there's a ceremonial sort of legislation, but no budget, no remedies, no programs enforced, no reparations being delivered. And I'm encouraged by what's happening in Detroit, because I understand that there's a $500,000 budget to operate the task force. And I believe that great things are to come for the work that is happening there. But at least that is a real, tangible commitment that there is money funded to operate the task force.
And like I said, I'll be doing a presentation for the Detroit Reparations Task Force on Saturday, March 2nd, 2 p.m. I'm going to put the flyer on our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's on my personal Facebook page, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep, and it's right here. People can come in person or they can watch online. This is, let's see, March 2nd, okay, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Farwell Recreation Center, 2711 Outer Drive, East Outer Drive, 2711 East Outer Drive, Detroit, Michigan. It's free and open to the public, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. I'm the guest speaker. I'll deal with the case for municipal reparations. They have the link here to watch it on Zoom also if you can't make it. So we'll post that on our website also, because I'm working on my presentation. But it's so important. And my teachers, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Professor Kabahai Walter Kamene, Dr. Claude Anderson, and Dr. Ray Higgins taught me to do the research first, then speak. And you also learn this in business school, like doing case studies and things like this. I graduated from Wayne State University's business school as well. Lastly here, because we're going to wrap up here, but I was showing from the California Reparations Task Force, because one of the problems I think we run into is keep trying to reinvent the wheel. And what I want people to understand is the California Reparations Task Force spent 2 years doing probably 90% of the work, if not more. And what I mean by that is this is a comprehensive study, a comprehensive 1,000-page report that shows what happened at the national level to African Americans, and they lay out 12 harms. I'm going to show you those 12 harms. Then they show specifically what happened in California and other cities in California. Then they lay out 115 policy recommendations. You don't need another 2-year study from the federal government. Build on this. Build on this. You're going to get studied to death. Yeah. I'm telling you. And then go back and look at the 1968 Kerner Commission report, because they make some of these same recommendations. You're going to get studied to death unless your job is to do studies. Now, if your job is to do studies, then okay, well, that's a whole nother conversation. All right, now, and Dr. William Spriggs, yeah, he passed away. He was an economist, and you would see him often on Roland Martin Unfiltered as well. We were Facebook friends also. We would talk sometimes on Facebook. Okay, now, they go through and lay out solutions. Okay. Policy recommendations, I should say. Policy recommendations, about 115 policy recommendations. So go read this. You can Google this, but it's also at oag.ca.gov, Office of Attorney General, oag.ca.gov. Okay. Now, when I spoke at King Solomon Baptist Church for the Kwanzaa celebration, I talked some about the California Reparations Task Force, and I laid out a few quick things here. This is one of the problems that we have, I think, and how we're not looking at this strategically. And I talk about the need to focus on present day structural inequities as opposed to slavery specifically. Because, like I said, race-based policies are illegal at the federal level. All the last of the former slaves died in the 1950s. Our situation is different than Japanese Americans. And what we're dealing with are structural inequities that are the legacy of slavery. So I talked about removing reparations from what it is we want to call it, because that becomes a huge target of opposition. And it gets, you have to understand this right-wing echo chamber led by Fox News, but then also conservative talk radio. Also conservative talk radio. I haven't gotten to Twitter. I haven't gotten to X. I'm just talking about Fox News and conservative talk radio. Show how these policies are beneficial for everyone, not just African Americans, since most of the people who have to vote for the policies are not African Americans. And then just a few of the policy recommendations that came from California, because there's over 100 of them. Require payment of fair market value for labor provided by incarcerated persons, whether in jail or prison. Fund community-driven solutions to decrease community violence at the family, school, and neighborhood levels in African-American communities. Establish and fund community wellness centers in African-American communities. Eliminate legal protections for peace officers, police officers who violate civil or constitutional rights. Then we have addressing the racial wealth gap. Wealth is what you own minus what you owe. It's the key to economic security. It is what enables families to build a future. Wealth functions in many ways. It provides economic stability during lean times. It opens doors to improving quality of life. It is a dam against the food waters or flood waters of economic catastrophes. It provides access to political power, and it allows us to live and retire with dignity. Okay, they talk about establish and fund community wellness centers, all that. Okay, now the just so everybody knows who hasn't read the executive summary, they lay out 12 harms that happen at the federal level and the state level, California. Then go deal with the history of the 12 harms. 1, enslavement. 2, racial terror. 3, political disenfranchisement. 4, housing segregation. 5, separate and unequal education. 6, racism in environment and infrastructure. 7, pathologizing the Black family. 8, control over creative, cultural, and intellectual life. 9, stolen labor and hindered opportunity. 10, an unjust legal system. 11, mental and physical harm and neglect. 12, the racial wealth gap. Then their policies they lay out are designed to repair the damage of these 12 harms. That right there, I'm trying to tell people, you don't need another 1-year study or 2-year study. They did the work. We need to take that and run with it and craft policies at the federal, state, and local level based upon what they did. Go ahead, sister, and give people your website also again.
I completely agree. And that's how we jumped into our work. People ask, how did you do it so quickly in Evanston? We had enough reports. We had reports that were sitting on shelves that consultants did, a ton of money. The case has been made in various ways through scholarship, research, oral history, and so on. We didn't need years to study it. We need to begin redressing it and putting funding behind it. And I do believe the California Task Force findings and their report should be the reference for every committee, commission beginning in this work, because we can borrow from the work that they've done already. It's succinct.
Absolutely.
It's categorized. It's current. It's up to date. And I do think that should be almost like a guide, a reference for those that are working on reparations. So please do follow me on all social sites. I'm most active on Instagram, but I am on all social sites, Robin Rue Simmons or Robin_5_Ward. That's my ward. Please do subscribe to updates at firstrepair.org. We have a toolkit. We have discussion guides that are very helpful. If you're an ally, we have work on how to be an ally and how to lead a life of repair. I still recommend that you watch The Big Payback. It's still streaming on Amazon Prime.
Talk about that.
It's a wonderful documentary that was directed by Erica Alexander, who we know as Maxine from Living Singles, Our Girl, and her colleague, Whitney Dow, who is a very successful documentarian. It premiered on PBS. It lives on Amazon, and it shows the reparations process in Evanston in a very honest and transparent way. It shows people for and against it, both Black folks for and against reparations. It shows a lot of my personal challenges and barrier as being a leader, serving on city council and leading reparations. But it shows what your community will be going through as you work on reparations. It celebrates the milestones and also shows the challenges. And in addition to that, please do go to wherever you stream music, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Tidal, and look for First Repair. The song is called Reparations. Please do download it and add it to a playlist. The artists are incredible. On our website, you can learn more about all of the artists. And then we also, lastly, we have a monthly strategy session that is open to anyone looking to join the movement or observe the movement. It is online on Zoom. It's every fourth Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Just go on and register and you will receive a Zoom link. There you will hear updates on every region in the nation on local reparations. And then we always have an expert presenter. This last month, it was Cam Howard presenting on the national reparations movement.
Right, from Incobra.
And this month, I'm excited, or not this month, but March, Women's History Month, we're going to have attorney Nikichi Taifa, Jam, Jessica Ann Mitchell, who you may know from the Black Information Trust, and myself. We will talk about women in the reparations movement historically and today. The next month is going to be Professor Al Tillery from Northwestern. He has an incredible study on reparations that he did in Evanston. And I hope that one day it's going to be Michael that's going to be joining us.
I was going to say, let me know. I'll speak for you all. And then also I have a fantastic presentation called Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization as well. But I can speak on multiple topics. Okay. And yeah, I can speak on that. And we can speak on dealing with policy, reparative justice, all of this. Before we get out of here, I just want to share this. So I mentioned the Kerner Commission report, and in 2023, I was on a panel discussion dealing with the Kerner Commission for the Equal Justice Alliance of Michigan. Okay. And if you go to blackpast.org, 1967 National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, also called the Kerner Commission report. So they have a write-up here on it. And it was designed to understand what was causing the rebellions that took place in this country and the African-American communities between 1964 and 1967. So it was named after Governor Otto Kerner of Illinois. That's why it's called the Kerner Commission report. But when you go through and look at this, this is what they found. To boil this down, this is what they found. In responding to why the rebellions occurred, the Kerner report pointed to Black Americans' frustration and feelings of powerlessness regarding high rates of unemployment. And let me flip over here. Okay, I'm gonna blow this up here. High rates of unemployment. Okay, high rates of unemployment and underemployment, poverty, police brutality, and inadequate public services. The report continued that a largely poor Black population was confined to the central cities while a predominantly white population moved out, and that the racism of white Americans was, quote, essentially responsible for the explosive mixture, end quote, leading to the uprisings. Answering the question, what can be done to prevent this in the future? The Kerner Commission suggested that the federal government intervene to improve housing, education, employment opportunities, and social services for African Americans. Also, the Kerner Commission report recommended that the federal government dismantle discriminatory practices in education, discriminatory practices in employment, discriminatory practices when it comes to the police force and hiring police officers, and criminal court systems, discriminatory practices in criminal court systems. President Lyndon Baines Johnson accepted the report but did not support the conclusions and minimal efforts were made to address the problems identified by the commission. Now, in preparation for me being on the panel discussion, they sent us a video. It was from it was a segment from CNN, and in this segment from CNN, they interviewed the only senator, the only person who was on that commission who was still alive. He's a former U.S. senator. I forgot his name. He said, and he was for the findings. He supported the findings. He supported doing something about these conditions. He said, now this was a white guy. He was explaining the Kerner Commission report to his father. And his father said, okay, so you're telling me that you're going to raise my taxes to pay for these programs for Black people in the inner city. And he was saying that his father, even though he knew it was the right thing, was against it because of how it was being presented. You're going to raise my taxes for these policies to benefit Black people in the inner city. I'm trying to tell you, so we got to understand how to properly present this also. Okay. And if you just present this as something for Black people, you're going to lose 11 times out of 10.
That's right.
Especially in this climate today. Especially, he's talking about in the late 60s, 1968.
Mm-hmm.
This climate today is even worse. They didn't storm the U.S. Capitol in 68. They didn't storm the U.S. Capitol when Richard Nixon became president, or when Carter became president, or when Reagan or Bush became president.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You're dealing with a different climate now.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'll tell you, what a refreshing conversation, what a refreshing show to be on with someone so well informed and educating, teaching the people. You truly are a professor. I see that now. You come with facts and receipts with everything you say. And I really
proper
love
proper documentation ends all conversation. Absolutely. I'm a researcher. You know, I'm a historian, researcher, national political commentator, all of that.
It's clear.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you always having a space for, you know, the movement to give updates from, it was earlier than 2021, actually. I think I was here earlier than that. But Thank you for what you're doing. And I couldn't figure out how to get in this chat. This is a new system for me.
Oh,
but I
Restream?
I'd never seen WeStream before. But I want to thank everybody that tuned in, everyone that had feedback, comments, whether I agree or not, you're here. And I want to thank you, especially for those that gave encouragement and support, because this work out here is tough. So we appreciate the love and support whenever we can get it, because when we're in these, I don't want to say in the streets, but when we're outside advocating for reparations, it's not always a warm welcome. So thank you.
And we get a lot of opposition from our own people, just crazy nonsense, you know, as well. All right, Robin. Okay, well, you have a great day, sister, and we'll be in touch soon, okay?
All right, peace. Good night, Michael. And
all
everyone.
right. All right, peace. All right, everybody. So that's Robin Rue Simmons. Hey, I want to give you some quick updates here. First of all, hopefully you like this type of information. A couple of things. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App and through PayPal as well. We have the information on our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. But I teach a 10-week online history course that just started up. And we have class number 4 coming up Sunday, March 3rd, 2024, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, okay? I deal with thousands of years of history, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You've never seen anything like this before. Now, normally we do this on Saturdays, but like I said, on Saturday, March 2nd, I am doing a presentation for the Detroit Reparations Task Force, and it's the same time that class is, so I have to. We're going to do the class on Sunday. Okay, Sunday, 2 p.m. You can register for it. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, and you can go back and watch them over and over again. Even after the course is over with, you can go back and watch it, okay? I'm going to put the new flyer up there. This is the flyer for our Sunday, February 25th class. As soon as you register, you can go watch that class. My lesson plan here is here for all 10 classes. So we deal with there's over 200 slides that I created. I've been teaching this class on and off since 2017. I created the curriculum for this class, and I selected the articles as well. There's 80 to 100 articles that we look at here in the class. There are about 15 books that we reference. I show you excerpts of the book on the screen. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. We look at excerpts. We also look at excerpts of interviews I've done with some of our historians, some of our scholars, Professor James Small, Professor Kabahai Watha Kamene, Anthony Browder, Runoko Rashidi, etc. Okay, but here, this is my lesson plan, and you can download this lesson plan. Okay, so you can follow along with us in class. I'm going to update the lesson. I've made a few slight changes to the lesson plan to add some information, so we'll update that. But in class, in our next class, we're going to look at. We just looked at Sunday. We just looked at Tanis Heraklion, the lost Egyptian city of Tanis Heraklion that sunk into the sea about 1,200 years ago. This was a city built around 8th century BC, okay, or BCE, before the Common Era. We talked about stone tools found on the Greek island of Crete that date back 130,000 years ago. So in this portion of the class, we're looking at archaeological discoveries that have come out in the last 10 to 15 years or 20 years or so, over about a 20-year period of time, that are causing the scientists and archaeologists to push the timelines back. We'll talk about the 17 pyramids that were found buried underneath Egypt around 2011. In the next class, we're going to get into understanding cooperative economics, which are principles we brought with us from Africa. And each class, we build a foundation to get deeper into it. We talked about the Khoisan, who have the oldest DNA on the planet, and date back about at least 100,000 years ago. They're the short-statured Africans who go all around the world. And the Khoisan were here as well, because we looked at information coming from Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, okay? So you can go through and look at the type of content that we cover here in this class. You've probably never seen anything like this before this class. It's on sale, $80, regularly $130. You can use this information with your children. Also, I would say the content is PG-13, but this class is going to blow you away. This is my life's work. It took about 7 years to get the class really developed to this point, okay? So as soon as you register, you can start watching the content. So please support us in what we do, because it takes a lot to finance the African History Network, pay for all these services, pay for Restream. I teach the class on 2 digital platforms, 2 online digital platforms. I have to pay them each month as well. But when you see the content in this class and how much you learn in here, it's going to blow you away. And then it was either the first, we did an introduction to the class on February 3rd. And then on our February 10th class, we dealt with some of the history of Black History Month as well. Okay, we dealt with some of the history of Black History Month. Okay, so, and what I'm going to do is, for the sake of time, okay, how you all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on the broadcast. Also, at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, we have the information for Cash App and PayPal. Okay. And I had to create this graphic here because people have set up fake African History Network Cash App accounts, and they've been stealing money from us. So it has information here about our radio show or our broadcast Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And let's see here. This is another class that I teach that's going to start up in June. It's called Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. That's going to start up the first weekend in June. But here's our PayPal and Cash App information here. Our Cash App account is $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael and shows my picture there. You click right here on the link. It shows our QR code. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts, and there's about 5 fake ones out there that I'm trying to get shut down. You click here for PayPal. It takes you to our PayPal link here also, okay? All right, now, let me do this. Since we still have a little more time here, I spoke for Saturday. Some of you all saw some of the broadcasts that I did for my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We did a joint Black History Month celebration with our sisters, the Zeta Phi Beta. And I was on a panel discussion dealing with African history, African American, we're dealing with cooperative economics and some history and politics, things like that. What I'm going to do, y'all want to see that presentation? It's like 6 minutes. Okay, you all want to see that the presentation that I did, because what I want to do, we were short on time, and the panel discussion I was on, it was going to be longer, but we were short on time, and I did not get a chance to get into the history of Black History Month. And anytime we have these Black History Month celebrations, you cannot have Black History Month celebrations and not talk about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who is the father of Black history and who created Negro History Week in 1926, which became Black History Month. Okay, you cannot have celebrations of Black History Month and not talk about the man, Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson. That's why we have Black History Month celebrations. So what I'm going to do, since this is my own network and I control all of this, I'm going to show the presentation that I did here, and then we're going to deal with some brief history dealing with Black History Month, African American History Month, and why we celebrate it.
All right, I'm gonna make this quick, okay, because I'm gonna wrap this up in 5 minutes. My 5 pages of notes that I researched with my portion of the panel discussion, I'm gonna boil this down to 5 minutes. We're gonna talk about history, economic law, and politics. First, I want to answer the question that was given to me dealing with classism. I consulted Boston University's Anti-Racism Center. Classism is a belief or a set of policies that deny people their dignity, deny people their value based upon a perceived belonging to different socioeconomic groups, whether they're poor, whether they're middle class, etc. And you create policies around that to target them. So in the African American community, we see higher rates of health-related disparities, high blood pressure, cancer, etc. We see higher rates of pollution, and pollution is connected also to higher rates of health disparities, etc. Okay? Now, one of the things that, I'm Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. One of the things I was also asked to talk about was dealing with economic empowerment and how we deal with that in the African American community. I speak across the country. I'm on Roland Martin Unfiltered every Friday. We need to focus on history, economics, law, and politics. The acronym HELP. History, economics, law, and politics. When two of my teachers teach, Dr. Linda Jeffries and Professor James Small, as well as myself, I use what's called the pyramid principle. If you think of a pyramid, the pyramid of Khafre at Giza, a pyramid has 3 sides. The foundation is African history and culture. It's our history and culture that gives us our values, our interests, and our principles. Our VIPs, our values, our interests, and our principles. This gives us a cultural paradigm that we see reality through, okay? It influences the 2 sides of the pyramid, your economic empowerment and your political empowerment. It influences how you engage in economics, okay? I have a contention with a lot of these economic empowerment gurus out here who try to convince us that wealth creation is the same as economic empowerment. And I was interviewing one of them, and I said, we can all have stock portfolios valued at $5 million and still spend 97% of our dollars with people that don't look like us. You have wealth creation, but you don't have economic empowerment. So when we look into our history, if you read the book, Collective Courage by Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nemhard, who's one of the top authorities on the history of cooperative economics, the co-ops are principles we brought with us from Africa. But since, for the most part, we've been stripped of our history, culture, language, spiritual systems, folklore, mores, we don't understand that we have this in our history. The Free African Society of 1787 was one of the first mutual aid societies. We have the Colored Farmers Union, 1886, out of Texas. they grow to 1.2 million members in various states. And these were African-American farmers that were sharing farming techniques, sharing all types of equipment, things like this, becoming very prosperous. They had to disband because of death threats from white supremacists. We look at the Color Merchants Association, 1928, coming out of the National Negro Business League, 1901, Booker T. Washington. This grew to about 243 black-owned grocery stores all across the country. And what they were doing was sharing marketing techniques, accounting techniques. They were buying in bulk, and they were competing better against the Woolworths and Crescents, okay? So you look at another one would be the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and the mutual aid programs that they had, the screening for sickle cell anemia, the breakfast programs, different things of this nature. When they were they have programs to deliver food to senior citizens who could not get out of their homes. So we have these different types of co-ops and mutual aid societies in our histories. In our history, what happened was that many of us went to white business schools or business schools at HBCUs that taught white business principles. And we tried to bring white capitalism back to the African American community. And what happened was, when you got rid of the co-ops, you got rid of a lot of the cooperation. Because to have co-ops, you have to have cooperation. Now, I graduated from Wayne State's business school. I learned a lot of white business principles. What made me so dangerous was I was studying African history outside of the white business school. So I understood the difference, okay? So, I want to wrap this up here. I want to thank everybody for your hard work. I know it's a lot of work. I've organized events similar to this before, but this is what we have to understand. Now, politics, let me wrap it with this. Politics is more than just voting. Voting is extremely important. And you get a lot of stupid people, and I'm censoring myself because of where we are. You get a lot of stupid people when you don't vote strategically. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Let me say it again. Voting is only one small part of politics. We've never been taught to play the game of politics to win. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Now, sometimes I get in trouble for this, but I tell people when I was on the Bonnie Parent Show on 19 a.m. before we went to West Prince Radio. I was a talk show host there for 7 years. I still have my social media platforms, a million followers on the African History Network, Facebook fan page, so that doesn't faze me. I said, I know people mean well, but we have to learn to vote strategically, and we have to stop telling African Americans to exercise your right to vote. Okay? Listen to me. You don't vote for exercise. If you want to exercise, go to the gym and work out. You vote for power. Everybody else understands this, especially black power. That's what you vote for. You vote for laws and policies that are beneficial to you, your community, your people, and what's good for African Americans are good for America in general. Okay? So I'm going to leave it there. I got a whole lot of other information. Come see me at the table here. The speakers that have my information and information on my online history classes as well. Asante Sana, my hotel, Wakanda forever. Only 6 minutes and 14 seconds. That's how I do it.
Thank you, Brother Imhotep. We're going to pass the mic.
So join us. All right. So normally we do. I had, what they did was they consolidated. There were going to be 2 panel discussions, and for the sake of time, they consolidated 2 panel discussions into one large panel discussion. So I had to make the most of the time that I had, okay, because I only got one chance to speak. But they're going to have me speak again because I blew people away with my information. Okay, so how'd you all like that? Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a heart on the broadcast. Who needs to still register for my new 10-week online history course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade? Next class is Sunday, March. It's next class is Sunday, March 3rd. Yeah, March 3rd, 2024. Sunday, March 3rd, 2024 is the next class. Okay, now we're going to look at this briefly here, dealing with African American History Month, Black History Month, okay? Let me go to the slideshow presentation because let's look at this here. And do I have the information for, I have some of the information here for, yeah, I have the information for this year's annual theme. Okay, because there's been an annual theme for Black History Month since 1928 also. A lot of people don't know this. This year's annual theme is African Americans and the Arts. African Americans and the Arts. And I'm going to give you some information on that. Because for the most part, the way we commemorate, the way we celebrate Black History Month is wrong. And unfortunately, a lot of us haven't done the research, mean well, but haven't done the research to really understand it. I did the research. And I went to ASALH's website, Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and researched the origins of Black History Month years ago. Plus, I talked to one of the past presidents as well, Dr. Darrell Scott of ASALH. Okay, so the father of Black history, the father of Black History Month is Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And he was born December 19th, 1875, 10 years after slavery ended. He was born in Virginia. He died April 3rd, 1950. He wrote numerous books. His most well-known book will probably be The Miseducation of the Negro, which came out in 1933. Now, Dr. Woodson, when we look at why was Black History Month created, Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded what was known then as Negro History Week in 1926, okay, 1926. He explained the reason behind the celebration in a pamphlet widely distributed months before the first celebration. Well, before the first celebration was to take place during the second week in February 1926. Now, I've been to Black History Month celebrations, and people say, why we have the shortest month of the year? Okay, why we have the coldest month of the year? The reason why Black History Month is in February is because it specifically it started the second week in February. It was held the second week in February. It started February 7th, 1926. Because the second week in February contained the birth dates of Frederick Douglass, February 14th, which most of us know as Valentine's Day, and Abraham Lincoln, February 12th. African Americans were having celebrations commemorating Frederick Douglass's birthday going back to the year after he died, when he died in 1895. So we were having celebrations in the African American community for Frederick Douglass for his birthday, and we were having celebrations in the African American community going back to the year after when President Abraham Lincoln is assassinated in April 1865. So we were having celebrations since basically Lincoln was assassinated also on his birth date of February 12th. So since there were already celebrations going on in the African American community surrounding these two men, Dr. Woodson put his new cultural celebration into that same period of time, because a lot of people were, having celebrations. They may be off work or whatever it is. This is going on, and so this is in 1926. Okay. Now, Dr. Woodson exclaimed that Blacks knew practically nothing about their history, and some of this is still true today. He ultimately believed that African Americans could benefit immensely from knowledge of their past and accomplishments of their ancestors. He added that race prejudice was the byproduct of whites' beliefs that Black people had not contributed anything of worth to world civilization. Okay. Now, Dr. Carter G. Woodson earned a PhD in American history in 1912 from Harvard University. He became the second African American to get a PhD from Harvard. The first was Dr. W.B. Du Bois in 1895. Woodson was the first of African slave ancestry because his parents were slaves, and Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois was born to free parents. In 1915, so this is the 50th year anniversary of the end of slavery and the end of the Civil War. Dr. Carter G. Woodson attends a 3-week celebration, this symposium that takes place in Chicago, okay? And this is the 50th year anniversary of the Emancipation, not the 50th year anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, 50th year anniversary of Emancipation, I should say, Emancipation. Emancipation Proclamation was January 1st, 1863. So there's a 3-week symposium that takes place, and they have all these exhibits, and is documenting the progress African Americans have made over those 50 years. And you have speeches given and things like this. And it's at the symposium that Dr. Carter G. Woodson gets the idea to create an organization dedicated to the study and the preservation and the documentation and the teaching of African American history as well as African history, because he didn't just deal with the contributions of African Americans here in the U.S., but worldwide, as well as on the continent of Africa. So he decides to create an organization to promote the scientific study of Black life and history, the scientific study of Black life and history. So this takes place on September 9th, 1915. He and 4 friends co-found the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History at Wabash YMCA there in Chicago, okay? In 1916, he creates the Journal of Negro Life and History, the Journal of Negro Life and History. And this was a journal dedicated to publishing the papers of African-American historians, because the white historical journals usually did not want to deal with the same topics that we wanted to deal with, or would not deal with those same topics the same way. So he understood we had to have our own infrastructure, okay? 1921, he creates Associated Publishers, Inc., which was a Black publishing company that he used to publish his books. And they also published textbooks for Black teachers to use as well to teach, Black children. Now, Dr. Carter G. Woodson argued that if the historical record was set straight, and that if the history of Black people were studied along with the achievements of others in schools, not only would Black youth develop a sense of pride and self-worth. Not only would Black youth develop a sense of pride and self-worth, but racism would also be abolished. And Dr. Woodson said the history of African Americans had to be taught in every school across the country, not just in schools where we were the majority of the population of the students. Okay, he understood it had to be taught in every school across the country. Now, Woodson concluded, quote, "Let truth destroy the dividing prejudice of nationality and teach universal love without distinction of race, merit, or rank, with sublime enthusiasm and heavenly vision of the great teacher. Let us help men rise above the race hate of their age unto the altruism of a rejuvenated universe." Now, Negro History Week was, as it was called in 1926, was the first major achievement in popularizing Black history or African American history, and was unique in that it focused on African American youth. Now, it wasn't only for African American youth, but there was a focus on our youth. Dr. Woodson realized that the miseducation of Black people began in their homes, in their communities, and in their elementary schools. Dr. Woodson's vision of Negro History Week was optimistic, strategic, and long-term. He wanted this modest week-long celebration to serve as a stepping stone toward the gradual introduction of Black history into the curricula of all levels of the U.S. educational system. He's saying this has to be taught in all schools across the country, as well as in colleges also. The reason why is because the way you treat a people is largely based upon what you think about a people. What you think about a people is based upon what you have been taught about a people. What you've been taught about a people is based upon everything you read, heard, and seen about a people. So if you go through 12 years of education and you get a high school diploma, and you're not required to learn the history of African Americans, but you're required to learn American history, world history, American government, things like this. When the history predominantly of white people is required for you to be able to graduate, to get a diploma, so you can go into the military, so you can get a job, so you can go to college. But the history of African Americans is not required to do the same thing. What you're tacitly saying is that these people's history is more important than these other people's history over here. And since people are a product of their history, then you're tacitly saying that white people have more value. White people are more important because you have to learn that history than African Americans are. Okay, so you have this tacit superiority and inferiority ingrained in the educational system based upon whose history is being taught. So Dr. Woodson understood this. Okay, let's continue. All right, how you all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast, and be sure to register for my online history course also. Now, Woodson's vision of Negro History Week was optimistic, strategic, and long-term. Dr. Woodson hoped that Negro History Week would evolve into Negro History Year. He hoped that Negro History Week would evolve into Negro History Year, as he affirmed from time to time. Woodson consistently instructed those observing the week that they needed. Now, everybody pay attention to this. Dr. Woodson consistently instructed those observing African American History Month, Negro History Week, that they needed to diligently prepare for the celebration months in advance. Diligently prepare for the celebration months in advance, and that after mid-February, because it started out as 1 week, after mid-February, they needed to continue acknowledging the role of African descendants in world history, not just in the United States of America, not just the first Negro to do this and the first Negro to do that, and Black people making inventions that make white folks' lives easier. That's not what Black History Month was about. That's what Negroes have reduced Black History Month to. They haven't gone and researched the original intent. Quote, Negro History Week should be a demonstration of what has been done in the study of the Negro during the year, and at the same time as a demonstration of greater things to be accomplished, end quote. Dr. Woodson instructed school teachers. Okay? Because what Woodson was saying is that you have to teach this history year round. You have to teach this history year round. That 1 week celebration in February, second week of February, African-American students were supposed to demonstrate what they have been studying year round. Not, this is the only month of the year where you teach Black history. Dr. Woodson said a subject which receives attention 1 week out of the 36 will not mean much to anyone. So the way a lot of this is being celebrated is totally backwards. And it comes from lack of research. People mean well. But I can tell you, I've been to a number of Black History Month celebrations. And people don't even mention the national annual theme. Don't even mention Dr. Carter G. Woodson. What the hell are you doing? This brother sacrificed his life, sacrificed his livelihood to finance the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. This brother never had children, never married. He said He said his work, basically his work was like his wife. Okay. And he knew he was not going to make a lot of money. He knew he was not going to get rich. But he was driven based upon the love of his people. And unfortunately, a lot of Black History Month celebrations, people mean well, but they do a disservice to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. This is why we have to do the research and honor this ancestor and honor other ancestors. And in honoring our ancestors, we honor ourselves. Read Dr. Pero Gaglo Dagbovi's book on Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson in Washington, D.C., the father of Black history. So the 100th anniversary of ASALH, which is now Association for the Study of African American Life and History, they had a celebration of the 100th anniversary here in Detroit at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. And Dr. Dagbovi was there doing a lecture and a book signing for his book. And I bought his book. His book is fantastic. I got a chance to meet him. Dr. Dagbovi is a history professor at Michigan State University. Also, I know Dr. Darrell Scott. You've seen Dr. Darrell Scott here on the African History Network show. Dr. Darrell Scott is a past president of the national chapter of ASALH, Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Okay, now, very quickly, because we're going to wrap this up. I'm not going to get through the whole presentation. We talked about some of this information in the class a couple weeks ago, but it's been a long day, and I just did an hour and a half with Robin Rue Simmons. So 1915, you had the Birth of a Nation movie come out the same year that Association for the Study of Negro Life and History is founded. And this movie rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan. This movie calls Race Riots in the Streets. It had dehumanizing images of African Americans, and it dealt with the period of time it dealt with was slavery, the Reconstruction era, and the Civil War era. Okay, and this movie rejuvenates the Ku Klux Klan because at the end of the movie, the Klan are the heroes. We boycotted against this movie. There's an article from the Root.com called "How Black America Rallied to Stop the Racist Film, The Birth of a Nation." There's an article from March 1st, 2015. And I talk about how we used to know when we were being insulted. You know, we used to know when we were being insulted. And today, you know, we sit up here and listen to dehumanizing music, dehumanizing negative corporate controlled hip hop, etc. But read this article because African Americans like Charlotta Bass, who was the editor of the California Eagle newspaper, which was the oldest Black newspaper on the West Coast, and you had people like William Monroe Trotter up in Boston. They led protests. They led protests against this movie. Okay, there were protests in the streets, and even when the play "The Birth of a Nation" was playing in Philadelphia in 1906, we led protests against that. Okay, we used to know when we were being attacked. Now we sit up. Some of us sit up, listen to Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Simply Red. Sexy Red, Ruby Rose. Nicki Minaj. We'll listen to artists like Lil Wayne, Rick Ross. We'll listen to artists like The Baby, things like this. Negative corporate controlled hip hop. And Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion win a American Music Award for WAP. They perform WAP at the American Music Awards. Just all types of Simple Simon nonsense. And we're the only people who would tolerate something like this. I'm telling you now, no other ethnic group would tolerate buffoonery like this. And there are people being dehumanized. Okay, now we look at annual themes. Okay, then also The Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, becomes adopted by the NAACP in 1919. This is 4 years after the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History is founded. It was written in 1900 by James Weldon Johnson, who just happened to be a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, my fraternity. So I've dealt with this history before. So I have 2 broadcasts recently that we did talking about the history of the Black National Anthem. Read this article here, Lift Every Voice and Sing, the story behind the Black National Anthem that Beyonce sang. Okay, and let's see here. This year's annual theme. Now, this year's annual theme is African Americans and the arts. Okay. Some of the other annual themes for African American History Month, and they've had an annual theme since 1928. The theme, they have a write-up each year on it, an essay on it. It gives direction on how to have celebrations, the content to have in your celebrations, things like this. It gives you purpose. It gives you direction. 1928's annual theme was Civilization, a World Achievement. 1933, Ethiopia Meets Error and Truth. 1935, The Negro Achievements in Africa. 1936, African Background Outlined. 1960, Strengthening America Through Education in Negro History and African Culture. 1971, African Civilization and Culture, A Worthy Historical Background. Go to asalh.org, asalh.org. Those are just a few. They list all of them there at the website. Okay. Other ethnic groups have their monthly cultural celebrations. Native Americans have it, Jewish Americans, Haitian Americans, etc. When you study the history of these, they all started before or after. They all started. Most of them started after 1976. 1976 is when Negro History Week became Black History Month, and was recognized nationwide, and President Gerald Ford did a proclamation recognizing it. Even though in Virginia, some of us had already started celebrating it for 1 month. Okay. Dr. Carter G. Woodson in Miseducation of the Negro said, when you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him this. You don't have to tell him, do not stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. So he's dealing with he was dealing with the programming in the educational system. Okay. This year's theme, African Americans and the arts. African American art. I will just look at the theme briefly. There's a 2-page write-up at Asalh's website. African American art is infused with African, Caribbean, and the Black American lived experiences in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. The African American influence has been paramount. African American artists have used art to preserve history and community memory, as well as for empowerment. So this is not just about entertainment. Okay. Artistic and cultural movements such as the New Negro movement right after World War I ends in 1918, and you have the New Negro, which is a concept they were called race man, and this is a concept of dignity and pride, and being proud to be Black, being proud to be Negro at the time. Okay, and these brothers were coming back home and said that we want all of our rights now. We want all of our rights now. Okay, we're not going to deal with the segregation anymore, the lynchings. We want first-class citizenship. They said we fought for this country, we died for this country, and we want all of our rights now. Okay, so this was the New Negro movement. All right. For centuries, Western intellectuals denied or minimized the contributions of people of African descent to the arts as well as history, even as their artistry in many genres was mimicked and or stolen. However, we can still see the unbroken chain of Black art production from antiquity to the present, from Egypt or Kemet, across Africa, from Europe to the New World. Prior to the American Revolution, which was 1775 to 1783, enslaved Africans of the Low Country in South Carolina began their more than a 300-year tradition of making sweetgrass baskets, which separate the rice seed from its chaff, revealing their visual artistry via craft. Now, there were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. Okay. All right. So they go through and they talk about different genres of music and different genres of art from the 1960s to they talk about the 1920s and 30s, the Harlem Renaissance, the Black Renaissance or the Harlem Renaissance. They talk about people like James Reese, Europe, who he and the band in the 369th Regiment called the Harlem Hellfighters, they formed a band over in France and introduced jazz music to France. You have people like Langston Hughes and Josephine Baker, etc. Okay. They talk about the 1960s and the Black arts movement, people like Nikki Giovanni, Alvin Ailey, who creates the Alvin Ailey Dance Troupe. They talk about 1973 and the creation of hip hop as a culture, not the creation of rap. Rap existed before 1973, August 11th, 1973, at a party in the Bronx that DJ Kool Herc was DJing at in Copeland Rock. They start this genre. 5 elements of hip hop are DJing, MCing, graffiti, breakdancing. They say beatboxing, but it's actually knowledge, because knowledge was part of hip hop. There are 5 elements of hip hop. So what they're introducing, some people dispute the date, is the culture of hip hop, not rap. Rap, you have the song Minnie the Moocher. Rap predates 1973. Okay, the recitation of lyrics over music, that predates 1973. Hip hop is a culture. Okay, Cab Calloway, Minnie the Moocher. All right. So then we look at Afrofuturism as well, and we look at people like Sun Ra and Janelle Monáe and Jimi Hendrix and the movie Black Panther that's dealing with Afrofuturism. Okay, so that gives us a synopsis of this year's annual theme of African Americans and the arts. All right, now, okay, so hopefully that helps you to shed some light there. Like I said, some people dispute the date, but hip hop is a culture, not a hip hop is more than just rap. And some people say that culture predated 1973. Okay, but you're dealing with 5 elements of hip hop. You're not just dealing with rap. All right, so look, that's going to do it for us. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register for my online history class that we do normally on Saturdays, but this coming Saturday, I'm presenting to the Detroit Reparations Task Force. So our next class will be Sunday, March 3rd, 2024, 2 p.m. And we'll get the new flyer up. But click right here to register here for the class. Class is on sale, $80. Our lesson plan is here, so you can download the lesson plan and follow along in class also, okay? And you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN show through Cash App, $, the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills. So all the people who are commenting here, and even the ones that don't know what they're talking about, you can support us also. We have to get out of here. Remember, right now it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you.